Hello and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to talk about the Oracle Veil of Sibyl. Was it a whispered prophecy or was it a cursed command? What exactly did this oracle tell us? And what were its predictions? Let's find out. The Oracle of Delphi, also known as the Pythia, was a person chosen by Apollo, the god of music, poetry, light, and the sun, who possessed the gift of prophecy. The Oracle of Delphi's task was to speak the will of Apollo to the people of Greece, telling them about their future, giving advice and warnings. To become an oracle, one had to be in a trance-like state, which made it very difficult to distinguish between a true prophecy and a madness-induced hallucination. But still, many came to the Oracle of Delphi for guidance, including Spartans, Athenians, Thebans, Corinthians, and even Romans. They asked questions about the outcome of wars, about their personal lives, and about their country's futures. One such question was asked by Augustus Caesar. In 42 BC, Augustus was at war with Mark Antony and Cleopatra. He wanted to know who would win, him or his former wife. And that's when he received the fateful answer, a response that changed history forever. According to Plutarch, the oracle told Augustus the following: "Beware the Ides of March." So on the Ides of March, Augustus got worried, fearing that something bad might happen to him. He decided to stay away from Rome. And that day, Caesar was assassinated. Augustus went on to become the first emperor of Rome after the Republic, and it's believed that he would have ascended to power if the oracle had warned him about the Ides of March. But there is another version of the story. Historian Suetonius wrote that Augustus didn't ask about the outcome of the civil war. Instead, he wanted to know if he should pardon his former wife, Julia, who had been charged with plotting against him. And the oracle said, "Beware the Ides of March." And so, Augustus pardoned her, but later had her put to death on the Ides of March. Her death supposedly was quite tragic and slow, lasting 3 days. Some sources say she realized her fate when she heard the oracle's prediction and begged Augustus not to trust it. But he did and pardoned her anyway. Either way, it seems like the oracle's prophecy was ambiguous and could be interpreted in different ways, which led to 2 different outcomes. This raises the question, was the oracle's answer a prophecy or a curse? We don't know for sure. What do you think? Did the oracle truly foresee the future? Or was it trying to trick mortals, like we sometimes try to trick each other? In today's video, we are going to discuss both versions of the story and the possible meaning of the oracle's answer. I believe it's important to understand that prophecies are unset in stone, and they can change depending on our actions and choices. In fact, most of the time, prophecies serve as warnings rather than predictions. That being said, let us take a look at some of the most famous examples of prophecies throughout history and see if they were indeed prophecies or cursed commands. Let's start with the infamous Lernaean Hydra. The Lernaean Hydra was a water monster with 9 heads that lived in a lake near the city of Lerna in Boeotia. It terrorized the locals, and no one could defeat it. So the hero, Hercules, volunteered to slay it. According to Hesiod's Theogony, Hercules found the Hydra in the middle of the lake and shot it with one of his arrows. However, when he did, 2 new heads grew back in place of the one he destroyed. And as he fought, more and more heads grew back, making the Hydra stronger with every head wound. Eventually, realizing conventional weapons weren't going to work, Hercules dug a trench around the lake to drain the water and then pulled the Hydra onto dry land where he strangled it. After he defeated the monster, he cut off each of its heads and burned them so that they couldn't grow back. If you ask me, this is a perfect example of a cursed command. The Hydra was a huge monster, and killing it was definitely going to be difficult. But instead of saying outright that Hercules would defeat it, the prophecy simply stated that he would slay the beast. Why would anyone need to slay the beast? Because it wasn't a threat to anyone. It lived in a lake near Lerna and didn't bother anyone. It was only when Hercules tried to kill it that the Hydra became stronger, and in my opinion, the prophecy served as a cursed command, urging Hercules to fight the beast without giving him any context or explanation. Of course, in the end, Hercules managed to defeat the monster, But this was definitely a difficult lesson about the dangers of blindly following prophecies. And speaking of prophecies, do you remember Cassandra? Cassandra was the daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba of Troy. She was also the sister of Hector, Paris, and Deiphobus. One day, while she was bathing, the god Apollo appeared before her and promised to make her a great prophetess if she would accept him as her lover. Cassandra agreed, but then broke her promise and rejected Apollo. Furious, Apollo withdrew his gift, but not before cursing her to always prophesy the truth. So, although Cassandra was blessed with the power of prophecy, she was cursed to never be believed. Throughout the Trojan War, she warned the Trojans about the Greeks' plan to build a giant wooden horse and led a small group of soldiers into the city, but no one believed her because of the curse. As a result, the Greeks won the war and took Cassandra to Mycenae as a slave. In this case, we can say that Cassandra's prophecy was indeed a prophecy, but it also served as a punishment, a curse, if you will. Finally, let's take a look at the Sibyl of Cumae. The Sibyl of Cumae was a woman who lived in ancient Greece during the 7th century BC. She was known as the Sibyl because she belonged to a group of female diviners called Sibyls. These women were usually older, unmarried women who were considered to be inspired by a god and capable of predicting the future. The Sibyl of Cumae was said to have been visited by the god Apollo, who gave her a book containing the Sibylline books, a collection of prophecies that were used by the Greeks to predict the future. According to tradition, the Sibyl of Cumae received these books on Mount Parnassus, the home of the Muses and the birthplace of prophecy in Greece. She was said to have used the books to predict the future, and her prophecies were highly sought after by the Greeks. There are many stories about the Sibyl of Cumae, but one of the most famous has to do with the destruction of Athens. It's said that the Sibyl of Cumae once prophesied that Athens would be destroyed unless the Athenians made sacrifices to the gods. The Athenians didn't listen to her, and as a result, the city was destroyed by the Persians. In this case, the Sibyl of Cumae's warning went unheeded, and the prophecy became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Sibyl of Cumae's prophecies were written down and passed down through the ages. They were used by the Romans as well as the Greeks, and they continued to be influential up until the Middle Ages. What do you think of the story of the Sibyl of Cumae? Do you think she was a true prophetess who received her powers directly from the gods? Or was she just a cunning woman who used her knowledge of astrology and omens to make accurate predictions? Feel free to share your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please show your support. And don't forget to join me next time for more videos about ancient mythology. Until then, remember, all the gods, all the monsters, and everything in between is just a story waiting to be discovered.